Hello everyone and welcome to Scale Model Action, everybody. I'm your host Boyd Crompton, and welcome to our very first video series on the channel here, guys. On this channel we're building anything and everything in scale modeling, and you can see today what we have here is the Polar Lights 1/25th scale 66 Batmobile. Now this is a really cool kit and I'm really looking forward to building this one up. We're going to be building this model and doing some nice painting on it. And then something very unique, we're going to be doing some nice custom lighting with an LED control board here from Tencontrols. So let's take a look at the model kit first and have a look underneath of the lid. And you can see that first up we have the body here. And let's take a look at that, guys. I've had a look at this already and I'm happy to report that the molding on this particular model is really nice and clean and crisp. It looks to be a very accurate representation of the 66 Batmobile. I've had a look around at a few different websites doing a Google search, and if you guys are interested in building one of these kits and looking for the details on it, you'll find that there are several websites out there with lots of up-close pictures of the original studio vehicle built by George Barris back in '66 for the TV show. The car was actually built off of a 1965 Lincoln Futura, as it was called. It was a concept car that Ford Motor Company was experimenting with. And George basically took the car afterward and did his own modifications to it and created the Batmobile out of it. The concept of the Lincoln Futura was this open sort of cockpit that was sort of aircraft inspired with the dual aircraft type canopy bubbles there in the front and the rear. And again, George expanded on that and then gave the unique bat look to the car by building all these wings and different things up on the car out of fiberglass and sheet metal, and it turned out to be beautiful, and it's an icon that's recognized around the world today. The real hero Batmobile car recently sold at an auction for over $4 million. So it just goes to show how popular this car actually was. Now our plan for the build on this one is we're going to do a really nice paint job on this. We're going to use the kit supplied decals. You can see here on the box art that there are some really nice pinstriping details on the various parts of the model. And we have some nice interior detail that needs to be painted on in the interior cockpit. And so we're going to be going with mostly the decals on that. But again, talking about the body here, the fit on this is just absolutely beautiful. I love how they've got this removable top section here, which did kind of something clever here, which I'll show you. Which when you put this in place, you see you wind up with a little bit of a seam here right next to the doors. And that's not such a bad thing because you actually would have a realistic gap right there where the edge of the door would really be, so that's not so bad. But the overall quality of the mold is beautiful. It's nice and smooth. I don't see any flash on this at all. No dimples or anything. All the panels look to be nice and straight, nice and crisp and clean. And so painting this one and doing a nice paint job on it's going to be fairly easy. And here we have the bottom part of the chassis. And you can see here it's fairly straightforward. You've got your frame, which is already attached to the floor pan, and this does have a steerable front end on it, which we'll get to in just a second when we show you the instructions and the various parts. You have your typical mid-60s chassis layout here with two leaf springs, a solid rear axle type setup with coil spring and control arms in the front. This particular car originally had a Ford big block engine in it with an automatic transmission. And this particular kit is the standard edition. You can buy the deluxe kit, which gives you the option of either building the turbine engine or the Ford big block engine. And that kit also comes with some nice photo etch parts. But this is the standard kit, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second, what our plans are with the engine. Let's start taking a look at some of the other parts here. I'll pull out this first bag of parts here, and you can see we have here the unique half-circle steering wheel and the turbine exit, the engine exhaust there for the turbine engine that goes at the rear. We have a lever in here which looks to be a 4-speed shifter, but this car was actually an automatic. And one of the stories behind this half-circle steering wheel too, if you pay attention to the show itself, in the first season or so, they had that half-circle steering wheel on there that was later replaced with a full circle. And the reason for doing that is they actually almost had a couple of bad accidents doing the stunt scenes with this car, because the driver of the car doing the stunts, once in a while his hand would get caught up in that spoke there and the steering wheel wouldn't turn and they almost crashed. So, and that's why you never really saw a half circle steering wheel concept that was approved from the safety people in Detroit for regular production vehicles for that very same reason. So, but this has the unique original half-circle steering wheel that we saw in Season 1, which was 1966. And here we can see we have the more parts here, which include the little bat symbols here that go on the center of the wheels. And we have the rear leaf springs here, the drive shaft. We have the rear differential housing here. We have the bat phone, parts of the interior here. We have a fire extinguisher, the bat turn lever. This is a small little strap detail that goes on the interior there. Here on this one we have parts of the engine exhaust. And here we have parts of the engine itself. We have the block, two halves of the block, the cylinder heads, the transmission, water pump, timing chain housing here, front coil springs, some small parts here for the a belt on the front of the motor, and some of the steering linkage assembly. Here we have the engine exhaust manifolds, the intake manifold, the rack and pinion steering system here, the fan, radiator, and it looks like to be a transmission pan cover here on the bottom, the belt assembly, and the radiator. Okay, and then we'll take a look at these chrome parts here. I'm not going to take these out of the bag. You guys can pretty much see these. We have the classic Krager wheels, which were on the car. Now, these are done in chrome, but the original car on the show, if you pay attention again to the detail on that, these were done more of in a satin aluminum finish, so we'll be dulling those down. Here we have the chrome valve covers, the oil pan, the air cleaner for the big block Ford engine, and then we have the rocket launcher on the rear that goes on the rear deck of the vehicle. And again, we may or may not build the engine for this car, and I'll explain why in just a second here. Here you can see we have some more detail parts. This is actually the engine bay, which goes up underneath of the body, which houses the radiator and the battery and a few other little details in here. Here you can see we have the firewall. This is the rear deck lid, which actually is set up on a little... actually, I thought it had some pins on it so it could be lifted up, but I guess not. It just sits on there flat. This is the trunk pan, which we have over here, the mobile crime computer that you often saw Batman access when he was out in the field punching up information about solving the Riddler's riddlers or finding out where the Joker was or the Penguin and things like that. So that's pretty cool if they included that. And here we have the battery and a few other little details that go in the engine compartment. Here we have some more detail of the exhaust and the part of the brake drums, which this car actually had drum brakes. Yes, they did actually work back in the day. And here we have the front valance, which is the lower part of the front body or just underneath of the front bumper. Same thing here at the rear. Some detail here at the top of the... this is basically the arch that goes over the top of the body in between the two bubble canopies on each side, on the driver and passenger side. Here we have the rear section of the interior pan, if you want to call it that, the tub. And we have an area here with some little detail that needs to be painted on and things like that. And then we have here the interior door panels. And these are the inserts that go in at the front of the car, at the front and the rear. These would be at the rear where the parachutes are mounted next to the turbine exhaust. And here at the front. Now they do have that detail on there of the sort of vented look. Some screen type, mesh type material. I believe on the deluxe kit that comes with the photo etch, these are actually nice photo etch parts that go on there. But these will do, they look pretty good. Here you can see we have the little parachutes. Here's the hood of the car, and I did some test fitting on this, and I'll show you this as well. This fits on here really nice. Again, I was very impressed with the fit and finish of the model. Everything fits on there really good with no excess of bowing or anything. It sits on there nice and flat. And then let's take a look at some of the clear parts here. You can see we have the front part of the windshield. Again, that unique aircraft sort of double bubble canopy on the front and the rear. I'm impressed with the clarity of the glass on this kit. It looks really nice and clean. All the model kit manufacturers have been doing a lot better job on molding that clear plastic lately. So I'm really impressed with that. Here we have these little parts here, and I'll show you something that we're going to talk about because, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing some lighting on this vehicle. And one of the things you remembered from seeing the television show, guys, is that these little lights here right at the front, next to the headlights here, were lit in orange, and they were supposed to be, I believe, sort of a night vision type capability to illuminate the road at night for driving at high speed, which was unique to the Batmobile. They probably called it Bat something, Bat lights or something like that, Bat driving lights or something like that. But I've already done a little bit of modification to this model. There were these, the actual panels were molded in black here. And of course it'd be hard to get light to pass through that, so I've shaved these down. I've got to trim them up a little bit more, but I've removed that little piece so that we can put this on here direct and mount a small SMD type LED behind this to get our illumination here for the orange lighting. Now I'll be using some Tamiya transparent orange, which I'll just dip these in, and that's going to give us our nice effect here of having these lit up. And I'm going to use a couple of pieces of regular white styrene that I'll glue on the back side of these, and then glue the SMD on the back side of that, so that the SMD will still shine through that styrene and then light up these orange panels here, but it won't look overly bright as if I was, you know, the same if I was to do it with an LED right behind that. So we want to tone that down a little bit, make that look more in scale. So that'll be the plan for lighting up the front of the car. And then let's talk about some more of the interior lighting here that we're going to do. And I'll show you a little special board that we've got from our friend Ralph at Tencontrols, which he created specifically for this kit. Okay everybody, so since we've gone through and showed you the basic parts that are included with this model kit, let's talk about the lighting that we're planning on doing this one now a little bit. Now here I have the dashboard area of the car, and we had Robin's side and Batman's side, which is driver's side and passenger side. I'm going to kind of put this little dash up in here and kind of hold it in place for you. Now if you watch the television show, guys, you remember that Robin had this little sort of scanner on his side of the car located on the top of the dash here, which had sort of a radar looking screen in there lit up in green, and it would sort of flash up and down. And so we're going to be lighting that as well, and doing some lighting here on Batman's side of the dash, just some basic lighting, but this one's actually going to have an animated effect to it where it actually strobes up and down. And we're also going to be lighting the little beacon or siren on the top and giving a spinning action. And then we're going to be lighting the bat phone itself, which whenever it rang, it sort of did an on and off pulse, and the entire body of the phone would light up, which was pretty cool. And we're going to be doing that. And then at the rear, of course, we're going to be doing the turbine engine effect with a little flame effect there. So let's talk about what we're going to do here. We're going to drill out this little screen here and then mount a piece of clear behind that and tint that green, and we'll mount a little flashing LED underneath of that, which will be controlled by our board here, and I'll show you that in just a second. And the same thing, we're going to be mounting an LED underneath of the bat phone here, and then we're going to use 3 small little tiny SMDs inside the siren here at the top, mounted in a circle so that when they're going through their chasing effect, they'll give a illusion of spinning. And then here at the rear, we're going to use a combination of a flickering LED that will be done in amber, which will give the sort of flame flickering effect, and then we're going to use an up and down pulsing effect with a blue LED that'll look like a blue and yellow and orange colored flame coming out of the back. So that'll be really neat. Now here's the board that we're going to be using. Again, mentioning I got this board from Ralph at Tencontrols. I want to mention real quick that you can head over to www.tencontrols.com and see that Ralph also has a nice board for sort of a generic automotive board, as he calls it, for using in scale model cars, which gives you your effects of your headlights in high and low beam, your taillights with turn signals on each side, and your brake lights coming on, and a couple other little effects he's got on that. It's a really cool board for scale model cars. But he's designed this board specifically for the Batmobile, and you can see it's very tiny here. My plan is to mount it in the chassis of the vehicle, which you can see it fits in here just perfectly. I'll use a little bit of hot glue to hold that down, and I can run all my wires to the different locations. Talking about whether or not we're going to build the engine or not, I may use the engine bay to mount a 9-volt rechargeable battery so that the vehicle can be self-powered. I'll mount a couple of micro on and off switches on the bottom so I can turn it off and on. And the reason I may do that is that the original big block engine in the car, we never got to see that anyway. It was supposed to have a turbine engine in that, so I probably won't even build the engine for this. And again, probably it's a perfect place to mount my 9-volt battery, and that's probably what we're going to wind up doing. But you can see the body will fit over this with no problem. We can put our trunk pan in there, and the control board will be hidden. But so that's going to be really fun. Let's take a look at the instructions for the board itself that Ralph has included. He gives you on the front page here a basic description of an LED, which if you've worked with LEDs very much, you know that they have two legs on most of the standard bulbs. The shorter one being the cathode, the longer being the anode, which the cathode is negative, the anode is plus, so the longer leg on your LED is always the plus side. And here's what your schematic symbol is for an LED, so you get an idea of what that looks like. Here he gives you a basic description. The board itself is numbered, so you have LED 1 and LED 3, which are the terminals on the board, are for the chasing LEDs, which will be our little spinners that spin around on the top for the siren effect. LED 2 and LED 3, and then we've got LED 5 as the ramp up and ramp down. So LED 2 and LED 3 are basic flashing on and off, and our LED 5 is for the gradual fading in and out effect that Ralph has got programmed onto this board for our turbine engine effect. And here you can see that here's a very simple schematic of the layout of the board, telling you where to connect everything. You've got your power coming in, which this will operate anywhere from 9 to 12 volts DC. Like I said, I'll probably be using a 9-volt battery, connecting a switch in here in line on the plus side so that we can shut this off or on whenever we want to. And then it's set up where if you wire it up direct, if you turn it on, everything will come on. So what I'm going to do probably is mount a micro on and off switch in line with each one of these LEDs here so that I can turn these off and on when I want to and have different effects going sometimes and other times not. So again, this is very straightforward and very simple. And again, Ralph's a really good guy. If you have any questions when you get one of his boards, you can always email him or call him directly and he'll give you answers on how to wire this up. But I've used quite a few of these electronic boards from different manufacturers out there, and I think that Ralph has some of the most easily understandable and straightforward instructions that are out there on the market. So I really enjoy using his products on these builds. And again, that's www.tencontrols.com. This is a brand new board that he's just got available for the Batmobile. You may not see it on his website yet, but you can contact Ralph and order one of these for yourself if you'd like. And one last thing I forgot to show you on the model kit, guys. Here's the decals themselves. These decals, some of the critics have said that they're not exactly the right color. They're a little bit too much orange looking. And you can see on the cover here that they're a little bit more red. But I'm not going to worry about that too much, guys. I'm going to go ahead and use these decals. I've always been pleased with most of the quality of the Polar Lights decals, and I don't think I'll have any trouble putting these on. And we're going to, of course, going to seal these down with a nice top coat, and then gloss over the whole thing with some really nice gloss clears, so they should lay down there nice and smooth, and we won't have to worry about those peeling up. You can see we've got all the various pinstripes here. We've got some interior detail for the dashboard, some of the bat symbols, bat this, bat that, that go on the car. We have the symbols that go on the doors. We also have the symbol for here for the mobile crime computer at the rear. We have the various license plates. Now, in the very first season of the show, I believe this, I think it's this TP6597 one here that says Gotham City 1966, I think was the plate that they had on the car for the very first season, the first couple of episodes. So that's probably the one that we're going to use. But so that's a nice decal sheet, and we'll be using that in this build. So that's it for our out-of-the-box review, guys. I hope you guys will come back and check it out. Our very next video here on the channel will be our beginning of our build-up series on this car. We're going to take you through the whole thing step by step and show you how to do our electronics here. Again, talking about adding all these special effects on this model. And that should be a lot of fun, guys. So thanks for tuning in. I want to mention real quick that we also have a companion community to the channel over at Google Plus called Scale Model Action. I've just created that over on the Google Plus page, so I hope you guys will hop by and check that out. And if you like what you see over there, feel free to join in and start posting with your builds and your tips and your tricks that you're sharing with everybody out there. Again, this is open to all types of model building, whether you're into cars, planes, trains, military, even spaceships, or anything in between. We'll be more than happy to see you over there, guys. So that's a wrap for this one. We hope you'll come back and check out our very first in the build-up series, which will be in a few days, of our 66 Batmobile by Polar Lights, with the special edition of the custom lighting on this one, guys. So until we see you next time, everybody, take care out there, everyone, and happy modeling.